Hello. Hopefully this is working. All right. I think I'm live. I had a bit of a hiccup with my internet, so I apologize for that. It seems like every time I'm prepared and ready to go, I have a problem. Um, okay, so tonight, hopefully this goes smooth. I'll be demonstrating to you guys how to put together the latest card to go kit. If you follow me on my Facebook page, you'll notice that I've been sharing some money holders, gift card holders, and other holiday items that are available for purchase if you need anything like that. So let's, fingers crossed, and let's hope everything switches smoothly. Hey, Sandy. All right, well, that's a good sign. Someone sees me. All right, I'm just going to switch screens. All right, here we go. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, so these are the three cards that we will be demonstrating, or I will be demonstrating tonight. This was the latest to go. The fun thing about this kit, well, it's all flowers, but it shares a few new products that will be available in the upcoming mini, I don't know what they're called anymore, mini occasions catalog. Yeah, I think that's what it's called for 2021. And that catalog will go live January 4th. If you are one of my customers, regular customers, you will receive one automatically in the mail, so be on the lookout for those. If you don't get one, I'd say by the first week in January, just send me a message. They're being shipped out directly through Stampin' Up, and I know during our annual catalog launch in June, there was a huge delay, primarily because we were kind of full force in the pandemic there and everything was so behind. So the first card is actually this one right here, and this particular card features this brand new paper right here. It's so pretty. It is called, let me get it in front of me, the Field and Flower Designer Series paper. And I'll just quickly flip through some of the patterns. And if you can see like the reverse sides. Okay, so the fun thing about this paper pack is this is part of our Sale-A-Bration. And if you're not familiar with Sale-A-Bration, is every year, January through March, Stampin' Up! Has a little smaller catalog that has some products in it that you can earn for free. And it's $50, free with a $50 purchase. And they also have different options. If you spend $100, they call it level 2. So you get a product's value is a little bit higher when you do that. But this is one of the papers that you could potentially get for free with a $50 purchase. And it can be from the annual catalog or the new occasions catalog. It doesn't have to be, you know, specifically one or the other. So this is the paper here. And what you need to make this particular card is, zoom down just a little bit. Hi Deb, I'm so glad you could join. How are you? All right, so you're gonna take a piece of cardstock, and this is Granny Apple Green. And I do the 5.5 by 8.5. I score it at 4 1/4. And we'll just fold that down. Oop. And give it a good crease. And then for, sorry, I haven't used my iPad to do this in a while because the software was so glitchy and it worked better if I just did one. So now I keep seeing myself. It's kind of funny. So this is a piece of, I want to say, Mary Merlot. No, I'm sorry. Cherry Cobbler. And for this, I used our rectangle. No, what did I use? Oh my goodness. Layering squares. So this is one of the scallops in the layering squares, and then I did a smaller square in Whisper White, and that's what we'll stamp our greeting on. And then I have these two little pieces that is 1.5 by 1.25 each. And this particular paper is also another Sale-A-Bration product. It's in a variety of shades. So like this side is Granny Apple Green and this side is, I believe, Gorgeous Grape. You can actually earn this paper pack. It's a 6x6 and you can get that free as well with a $50 purchase. And so I just cut these down, these little things. And we have 2 sets of flowers here. So this particular flower, I believe I did in crushed curry. Yeah, I think it's crushed curry. And this is the perennial flower punch. And this little one right here is the small bloom punch. And that one I did in So Saffron. And then I punched it again in Whisper White. And then I have these little, these were some crystal gems that I've had on hand for a while. And I realized when I used them, I don't remember where I put them, so I'm just going to use rhinestones when I make this card. And I'm sure once I put the card together, I'm going to find those gems, but you know, so be it for right now. Anyway, actually, I take that back. I just found them. Okay, then you're going to need a piece of the Designer Series paper, and as I mentioned, this one is from the new Sale-A-Bration pack. And this is the reverse side. So for this, I just did 1/8 of an inch shorter than the card front. So this would be 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Yes, 4 1/8, 5 3/8. I have these written down too, but I'm just going off the top of my head here. And then I have a strip for the inside of my card and a piece for my envelope, which I'll show you how to do. The stamping I did in Granny Apple Green. Now remember, when I do my cards to go kits for you guys, I try to keep my stamping to a minimum because unfortunately through Stampin' Up's policies, I cannot give you stamped images if the product is not completed. So I try to make these basic enough that you should be able to use some of the stamp sets that you have on hand. If you don't, there's always that option of coming here, doing a quick stamping, and assembling later on. All right, so what I did was basically just put the layers on. These cards are pretty simple as far as how they go together. So I'm going to do my Designer Series paper first. And I'm sorry, oh, and I cut this one a little bit shorter. So I'm a little distracted because I have a cat trying to climb up my leg. She's catching me really good and I'm trying not to react. And for the inside of my card, I'm going to use a Whisper White that is 4 by 5 1/4. There's never a dull moment whenever I come down here, especially now. I have 2 kittens, so especially now when I come down here, they seem to follow. And they want to be up here with me, and I can't let them because they knock everything off. So I'm going to use the polka dot side here, just along the bottom, and just add a little bit of adhesive. And I'm using the new Stampin' Seal adhesive that came in our annual catalog. And there's also Stampin' Seal Plus, which is a much stronger adhesive. I will say this is a great adhesive. I just, for some reason, I struggle with it. I think I'm just so used to the snail that I forget that I'm not using the snail. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp my greeting. And the greeting that I'm using is this one right here called These Are the Moments We'll Look Back On With Joy. And it's from a current stamp set called Peaceful Moments. It's a pretty stamp set. It has a lot of fun greetings to use. And I'm going to open this up. And I will be cleaning. I know sometimes people don't clean their stamps, but because I have to move my images around for the next cards, I will be cleaning as I go. So bear with me. All right. And then we're going to punch out the flowers. So as I mentioned, I used crushed curry and so saffron. So for the perennial flower, I'm punching twice, once and then twice. I'm going to punch out one of the small blooms and so saffron, once in the whisper white. And my so saffron just flew across the floor. So I'm going to punch one more. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is take my bone folder and I'm just going to curve the edges of the flower petals just so it creates a little bit of a dimension. I don't want to do it too much because I don't want to separate the fibers in the paper. I just want to give it just a little bit of movement. And I'll do that to the smaller ones, like so, really quick. And you could certainly take a sponge and smudge the edges with the same color or a darker color to give it a little bit more dimension, but I'm just going to keep it the way that it is. I used to call myself sponge crazy. Every edge of something had to be sponged. And then I kind of got away from it. So now I'm just sticking the greeting on to the cherry cobbler square. And I'm going to line this up pretty much center. And just kind of figure out where I want these little pieces. Now I will tell you, if you're ever like you want to create something and you just having trouble having an idea, do some searches for card sketches. I have found it's called Operation Right Home, which is a really great website that coordinates sending cards to military troops, and I've donated a lot of my cards to them just because I end up sometimes with an abundance of cards and I don't always get to send them out, you know, due to timing or whatever. But there's a whole section on there that's all card sketches. And that's where I have actually found the cards that I'm doing tonight. And I have no shame in saying I look for ideas and take inspiration from other places. Sometimes, you know, the brain gets a little foggy. There's no harm in that, right? Okay, so now I'm going to add adhesive to, dimensionals to the back of my cobbler. And I'm going to just cut the edges here because they're still sticky. They're still dimensional in it. Why waste it? Peel the backing off. And set this down. Oh, I apologize. My phone is ringing. Oh, come on. I'm sorry, hang on. Okay, sorry about that. I can't put my phone in airplane mode or anything like that, or then you can't, then I can't do anything. It won't connect, but I apologize for that. There's always that one call that comes in, right? Just keep swimming. That's what I tell myself. Okay, so now I'm going to, I did that wrong. Dimensional on the back. And I'm going to use a glue dot. And I was almost going to go at 7:30 tonight. And my daughter's dance class had to adjust I guess they're in-person numbers again due to the latest restrictions. And she has a 2-hour break in between her first and second class. So she wasn't sure if she was going in, and it sounded like they were going to have her come in because it's 2 completely different classes, but I didn't find out till 5 that she really wasn't going in, so I ended up having to jump on really quick and get everything situated. It's those moments that I get frazzled, those last minute things. Okay, so I'm using gold instead of the clear, because I couldn't find my clear ones, but the gold's fine. And hopefully I'm still streaming live to you. I don't have any indication that I disappeared altogether, so there's this card. And then here's my original. And I cut this one a little bit shorter. But either way, they look good. So now we'll quickly do the envelope. And what I like to do, if I can't, if I don't stamp an image, like for this particular card, I used just a greeting stamp. There was no images in the stamp set. So a nice way to use some scraps and decorate the envelope so that you're not giving something that's plain or blank to someone is I take some of the designer series paper. And a lot of times I have these pieces that are left over and I no longer really have a need for something that small. It's perfect for the envelopes. So you stick adhesive on the flap. If you're doing something that has a directional image on it, make sure when you attach it to the envelope, when you put your flap down, that it's going in the right direction. Otherwise, it will be upside down. So you just stick that on, and then with your scissors, just cut your edges. And then you'll have a nice little decorated envelope to go with the card when you give it away or mail it away. And it doesn't add much bulk as long as you adhere it down pretty good, like at the edges, because if it does go through the post office machines, you just don't want it to snag anything. Okay. So the next card we're going to do is this one right here. Now the designer series paper that I'm using is from a set called Ornate Garden. And this was brand new in the annual catalog. The new item that I'm using is actually this greeting right here. I used, I think I showed a sample of it in my last Facebook Live, but it's a really cool set. And it was one of the first things that I ordered on my pre-order. To me, it's just a lot of fun. And it's this one right here called Many Messages. And it's an entire stamp, a big stamp. So you'll need a big block for this. It looks like this. So Stampin' Up has this F block that's huge, this big acrylic block. And you'll stick the whole thing on just like that. And I can tell you that my piece of paper is 5 by 6. Okay. For this one, I think I stamped in pumpkin. Maybe Calypso Coral. It looks like Calypso Coral to me. So you know what? That's the one I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is, because it's such a large block, I recommend keeping your image down. Take your ink pad and go across it, because then you can see all the areas that you're stamping. Okay. Take your paper. Now I would do this with any large stamp, especially background stamps. And I'm going to take my cardstock and stick it right on top like this. And I don't want to move it. And then I'm going to take my, this is my grid paper, but if you have a scrap piece of paper, and I'm rubbing my hand across the top. Now, if I'm doing this right, it should come out nice and neat, but because I'm recording it, you know, we just never know. And here we go. And then you have the entire image stamped without having to like put it down and really hope that it all comes out. The fun thing about this set, and I've already pre-done this just for the sake of time, but I do want to show you. It has this die that goes with it, and the whole die is one piece. Okay. You stick it on top of all the greetings. And what I do is I line up, there's 1, 2, 3 stars and a heart. And that's where I line up to make sure that my greetings are all in the right spot. And then you can take some washi tape or a removable type of adhesive. You could also use the sticky part of a Post-it note to kind of hold it in place. Now, I wouldn't do this unless I'm putting it through the Big Shot all at once, 'cause then, you know, you run the risk of it moving before you get it to the machine. And I said Big Shot. I should have said Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Oops. But when you cut it out, now this is a couple different ones that I've already done, but you get all these little bits. And this is the one that we're using today. Your kindness means more than you could ever imagine. But there's all these fun ones here. So happy to hear of your exciting news. Just wanted to say, be strong, be brave, you've got this. And if you see, it already cuts out the stitching, the flagging. It's just a really fun set. And stamp once, cut once, and you have tons of greetings. Okay, so for this card, I am using, again, 5.5 by 8.5, score it at 4 1/4. Inside layer, which is Whisper White, at 4 by 5 1/4. We have a paper layer that's 4.5 right here by 2. This will be for the envelope and the inside of my card, and that's 1 inch by like 5 1/4. And then I have a piece of crushed curry that is, I think it's 3/4 by 4. And then another strip of designer series paper that is 5 1/4. And this one is by 1 1/4 right here. And then I have a piece of the granny apple, no, I'm sorry, old olive. And this one is 4 by 5 1/4. And then piece of cardstock that is, I think, 1.5, let me just double check, 1.5 by 5.5. So most of the measurements on this one are about 1/4 inch from one another. And that's usually how I do my layers. It's either 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch. I don't like doing anything else. It gets too confusing. But if you keep your layers consistent, your measurements, it's easy to them out. So we're going to start with putting down the old olive layer. And for those of you that did order this to-go kit, I want to say thank you. It is still available. Just because I'm live doesn't mean they're not. The only thing that I will say is from time to time, the designer series paper availability can change, and so you just might receive some designs that are slightly different than what I featured, but it should always be from the pack that I'm showing. And I should have put this one under first, but I'm too busy talking away over here. And I'm just going to lift that. And stick this one down. And then this one goes right to the edges. And then this piece right here is going to go down with the dimensionals. And I'm just going to use a long strip for my edge. And this fits in between here. Just like that. And then the greeting, like I said, I've already stamped and cut out the hoping your day, oh, and I actually said the wrong one. I did a different one for here. So on my original card, I did your kindness means more than you could ever imagine. And on this one I did hoping your day is full of love, laughter, and joy. And then this fits just across here. And then I have these champagne rhinestones that are available in the annual catalog. And I'm using the Take Your Pick tool to pop off. Let's see, I'm going to do 3 little ones. 1, 2, 3. Now I already showed you the envelope in the first one, so I'm going to skip doing the envelope on this one. But I will show you the paper that I used. And then I'll do the inside. I think I'm going to stick with this pattern. And this goes right inside. Just like that. So there's card number 2. Now for the envelope, I also cut this pattern and I was thinking of doing the reverse side. So again, add adhesive to your flap here, stick your paper on, flip it over, and then just trim your edges. All right, second card done. And the last card is this one right here. Just want to say. This is a really pretty pack, and I really wish I could show you the page in the catalog, but I can't. We're not allowed to share the inside pages. But here's the front cover, and this features the Fine Art Floral Suite, and this is the Designer Series paper, and there's a little bit more of it here on the back. It's really, really pretty. This is kind of like a sample of what they do. This is actually painted on a canvas, just the way it's shown, and then they print it into Designer Series paper. So where we have some papers that have a watercolor look, this is actually a painted effect. It's really, really pretty in person. And this is the pack. And so this is the one that I used. And then this particular one here, but that's the reverse. So if you look at the images, you can see that painted look. There's no texture to it, so if you run your hand over the paper, you don't feel anything. So to me, there's like the pinky and yellow version, and then you get into the blues. So, so pretty. I mean, this one is just so pretty on its own. You could, like, seriously just put it in a frame. It's gorgeous. And the same thing with like this one right here. It's almost like sad to cut it. Well, I'm not sure how much of it I'll use, but all right. And then for this one, I'm using, it's called the Art Gallery Stamp Set. This is part of the suite, and they call this 2-step stamping, which I will show you, but it's by layering these 2 stamp sets that you get a darker, lighter look. And then the dies. And then this is actually the wording that says just want to say. It's 1 die. All right, so let's put this together. So we have a piece of the Designer Series paper that is 4 by 5 1/4. We have another layer that is 5.5 by 2 1/4. This one, I think this is for the inside, so this would be 1 by 5 1/4. I have a piece of Merry Merlot, and this was cut with the rectangle stitched dies. You can see the stitched edge. And this die measures, when it's cut, 3.5 by 2. And then we have the greeting, just want to say. So I've already cut that out. 2. Come on, stuff, get them in order. Just want to say. There you go. And then we have my inside piece that's 4 by 5 1/4, and then the card base itself, which is again 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. This color is a Flirty Flamingo. So for this particular card, when I do my stamping, I'm gonna do a different color just so you can see the layering, because I think the Flirty Flamingo doesn't show up very well on camera by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick down my 2 bottom layers first, because they don't require any dimensionals or anything else done to it. So let's add a little adhesive, stick this down, and then the next one on top. And the nice thing about this paper being double-sided is you could choose whichever side that you want. If you don't like the one that I chose, just flip it over. Ooh, come on. And that's the one thing with the new adhesive you have to be really careful of, as opposed to the snail. I feel like with the snail you had a little bit of wiggle room until you really pushed it down. But with the Stampin' Sale, it really like has an instant bond. So you do have to be careful with that. So now I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to start with the light one first. Actually, I'm going to start with the darker color first. So let's see, I have Flirty Flamingo. And I think because I'm using Merry Merlot in the card, I'll do Merry Merlot as my dark layer. So with the 2-step stamping, the point of it is to show you light and dark images. Now you can certainly do this with the Flirty Flamingo and just have a layered look with just that one color, but to me it doesn't show up well on my camera because of my lighting. So I'm going to go down with this one first, which is, like I said, Merry Merlot. Hi, Teresa. And clean this off. Switch it. And then you just layer this on top by lining up the edges the best you can. Stamp straight down and then lift up. And then you get that layered shadowy look, if you can tell. So by doing those layers you get a little bit of a different look than my original card, but you can definitely see the detail of the stamp image itself more. And you can do so many different colors with these. Like, it doesn't have to be pink. Do blue, do greens. And then I'm going to stamp my leaves, but I'm just going to do my leaves because these are just a one thing. I think I'm just going to go with the Granny Apple Green. And go straight down. This is usually when I tell ink pads need to be re-inked because it's so warm in my basement with my pellet stove going. And I don't always realize it until I go to stamp, and you can tell the ones that start to dry up a little bit. All right, sorry about that. I'm just trying to move stuff out of my way. I gotta get my Stampin' Cut emboss machine. So I don't need this whole piece of paper, so I'm just gonna trim out. And if you haven't tried the Stampin' Cut die machine, it's really easy to use. It's all numbered, so here you go. Here it is. Let me zoom out. Zoom out, come on. Opposite way. There it is. Okay. So this is the full size one, or the standard size one they call it. And they fold up for travel. The mini one will be available, I believe, January 4th or 5th. So it's smaller. It will not take full size dies, but smaller bits will go through just fine. So you just pop these down. There is a magnetic plate. Unfortunately, every time I've tried to order it, it is not available. What the heck happened there? So for cutting out a die, you're going to do the bottom plate, which is 1, the cutting plate here, which is 2, the acrylic pad number 3, your paper. Let's get the dies out. Now, because I don't have the magnetic platform, I am going to use a little Post-it note here to kind of hold my dies in place. Sometimes I can get them to go through just fine. Let me do that over here. And other times they like to move once it starts going through the machine. Alright. And now I'm missing my acrylic plate. What did I do with that? Okay, this is so strange. I think this happens to me every time I go live. I misplaced something. Oh, you know what? It fell on the floor. So I'm just going to use another one. Pretend this says number 3 on it. Put it in. Oh, and see, my paper already moved. Dang, nab it. Get in place there. All right. Put it down. And just crank it through. Hi, Barbara. Better late than never, right? And honestly, you only have to go forward once. I just sometimes go back again just to make sure. But this machine is just, it cuts so much better than the Big Shot ever did. And yeah, I went on the other day to order the magnetic plate, and I think it's out of stock again. But it is what it is. I've been using this without the magnetic plate since the day I got it, and as you can see, my cutting plate is well loved, and that went through with no problemo. I'm still contemplating on the mini one, and the only reason for that is, do I really need it? Honestly, I would want it because it exists, but I don't need it. So that's the dilemma I'm in. All right. To me, it's like I have to buy things. I have to see how they work. I can't tell you how good it is if I don't have it, right? That sounds good. Okay. So to do all of this, I'm going to stay zoomed out for a minute just so I can fit everything on the screen, and then as I'm assembling, I'll kind of zoom in to make sure you can see everything that I'm doing. So I'm using the fine tip glue pen here and my little silicone mat. And I'm going to add some adhesive. Just dab it along. Now we also have in the annual catalog adhesive sheets. And what you do is you peel off the layer on one side, stick your cardstock down to it, put your die on it. So you'd be sandwiching, kind of like what you do with the plates to run it through the Stampin' Cut emboss machine. But when you cut it all using the adhesive sheets, you don't have to go through this because the adhesive is now cut to the shape of whatever you just cut out. It's such a time saver, and it's awesome for like the really intricate dies when you get to those fine things like snowflakes, and oh my god, sometimes putting the adhesive on the snowflakes is a freaking nightmare. I'm always making a mess. Alright, so I'm going to move this over, stick this down. And honestly, just eyeball where you want this. Oop, get it on the right side. And the flower goes on top. Alright. So I'll move in just a little bit now. Make sure when you stick your words down, they're in the right order. I ruined my first card because, yeah, it didn't make any sense. And there was a dot for the I on the dot for the top of the J. I threw it out thinking it was a scrap. So if you cut this out, look for that. And if you did order a to-go kit, I did make sure I included the dot. So if it is missing, I'm sorry. It's really teeny. So now I'm using tweezers because I don't want to get stuff all over my fingers. You could use the take your pick tool, but I am such a tweezer person when it comes to this. I for placement, this is what works for me. Oop. And there you go. Easy peasy. Look at how cool that is, right? It's such a cool greeting. I just want to say, all right, now we're gonna do our dimensionals, and for this project all along you've seen me use my edges. And this goes about a little bit higher up. And I have my little rectangle, stitched rectangle. And I'm going to stamp my greeting. And the greeting I did in Merry Merlot. And it's right from the stamp set because this says just want to say. So you can say, I miss you, happy birthday, good luck, all that good stuff. On this one I said thank you. You know what, I think I'll stick with the thank you because I always feel like I never have enough thank you cards. So, and we're almost done. So stamp that down. And I probably say this every single time I use this punch because there is a newer one in the annual catalog that kind of replaced this, but it's the word window punch. It's my favorite punch. I use it constantly. It's just one of those ones that I'm like, I can't replace it. Can't get rid of it. Why bother? But then I'm like, oh, I should really get the new one. I don't know. But either way, whatever punch you have, and you just stick your thank you down. We're going to add, I have regular dimensionals on that, 2 here. That's the downside of not having nails. Sometimes you can't get the backs of these things off. This is when I should use my take your pick tool. But it's fun to watch me struggle, isn't it? And that goes right there. And then for the decorative part of my embellishment, I use the Elegant Faceted Gems. And I did get a little carried away with them, so I don't know. The card was just so pretty. The paper and everything doesn't really need to be embellished at all. I love when paper does all the work, and that's this set. And I'm not a flowery person, but when I saw it during our remote kind of demonstrator convention type of thing, and Sarah Douglas, who's the current CEO, and her mom, Shelly, which is the founder, demonstrated this set, like I fell in love with this paper pack. And there's so much more to it, so it'll be exciting when you guys finally get to see what it looks like. And then the inside. So for the inside, I'm doing the, I don't know, to me they look like a little hexagon, honeycomb look, but same thing I did for this background here. And that goes in on the inside. And the last thing is the envelope. And you know what? I won't leave you hanging. I'll do the envelope again. No fat fingers. Happy mistakes, Barbara. I know what you meant. Oops. What am I doing? See? I make mistakes. Okay. Put your adhesive on the flap. Then we're going to take the paper and stick it to the back of the envelope like that. Turn it over. And I didn't mention when I demonstrated it on the first card, but I find long cuts, except for this little corner. But don't go like snippety snip snip like that. Go long cuts. And that gives you a really smooth edge. You don't get like that jaggediness. And don't use scissors that you cut your ribbon with to cut paper, because they won't cut the same. So if you're somebody who likes a lot of ribbon or does stuff with fabric, have 2 pairs and save your paper. All right, so that is the envelope. These are the cards that go with that. Right? And then this was the other card. And then this is the envelope flap that I'm going to use, but I skipped that one. And then this was the first card with this awesome paper that you can earn for free. Right? All right, so here's me and my horrible sailing. But I know this will make Barbara happy because she's been yelling at me that I need to show my face in my Facebook Lives. But I never feel like I'm prepared to sit in front of the camera, and the angle that I have is horrible, and you're going to yell at me later for being negative, but too bad. So I just want to say to you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to those of you that did order this kit to go and that were able to put it together with me tonight. If you're still interested in the kit, just send me a message. And other than that, till the next time, I actually think it might be Monday, if my paper pumpkin shows up in time. I think. Yeah. No, not Monday. No, Monday. Oh my goodness, I'll have to look at my calendar and I'll double check. But I think Monday I have scheduled a paper pumpkin demo if it comes in on time. So, and that's the bear one. Yeah, the berry something. Okay. So anyway, before I drag this painful conversation on any further, again, thank you guys so much. Have a good night. Until the next time, happy stamping.